You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
You're heavily into helping build community right now, and you actually harnessed your community, the people around you, even way back then, to get their perspectives, to kind of get their kind of thoughts. And so really, I mean, you are solidly immersed in the belief around the value of community.
Yeah, community has always been a big, important piece of my life in so many different ways. I mean, as I said, I spent 17 years in the financial industry, and I was really, I think community goes way back for me, but I worked with a team that was an incredible team between two companies, and we were like family between those two companies. And then my community from my colleagues and my neighborhood and just everything has been that's a real important piece to me. And I live in a small town that in the middle of the busy Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, and it's like community is a central piece. So that's always been something I've looked for. It's a very connected small town. So that's always been something that has been highly important to me. Feeling connected and like knowing our neighbors, being able to, continuing that connection with my friends from college and high school and all of that, and making sure that, we look out for each other and we take care of each other. And yeah, that's been a big, important piece for me, always.
Yeah, I love that. And it feels aligned with me as well, because I grew up in more of, I didn't grow up in more of a nuclear family, just even going back to my childhood, even though we were kind of in a nuclear household, but we were always around aunts and uncles, cousins. And I remember when I was anywhere between 3.5 years old all the way to when I was 13 years old, we were in this apartment complex, but my uncle was in front of me, my aunt was there, and we all went into each other's place. It's as if it was the same place. Oh, and we couldn't, as kids, we didn't, we knew that this was our home to sleep, but we spent more time there, and my friend's place was there. And so it was interesting because it gave us a sense of first security for one thing, and it was a different land that wasn't our home country, but also it gave us a sense of, okay, there are all these people looking out for us and helping us, and it gave my parents a sense of, okay, it's not just them looking out for us, but it's just at the basic foundation level, it makes a huge difference. I loved what you said about that nudge. I think every coach I've talked to, they've had that nudge to some degree to kind of jump into this thing. I'm curious to hear though, after all these years of you being around coaches and doing coaching, what speaks to your heart about coaching? What is it about it? And what do you, in retrospect, when you're looking back, what do you think about coaching that now that you're in it? Maybe it's not as random as Dr. Sherry mentioned. How do you feel about the whole process?
How about what pops out for me about?
Yeah, what is it about coaching that connects to your heart?
I've always loved people, and I just love hearing people's, helping people and hearing their stories and helping to guide them to see different possibilities for themselves. I think that's the piece. I particularly love one-on-one coaching. That's where I'm really passionate about. I just love having this connection and seeing that sometimes people don't see for themselves. I think all of us, we get in this, we can kind of have blinders on, so to speak, and not see all that's out there, or helping people to see different perspectives on things. I think that's really the piece of it. And that for me, also, it's that connection, the connection between the coach and the client. And I know being a client of a coach before I became a coach, it was somebody is here for me, cheering me on, and somebody is, helping to guide me to what's my next best self. And I think that's the piece there, that connection, and really being able to support people in their process to, have a better life and feel more positive about themselves. We all go through ups and downs, and especially in the past few years, and helping people to see like, okay, where you may be in a like a tough time, but there's hope out there. There's positive, we can find a positive direction, and helping them create their own answers. I think that's the piece that I really love too, is as a coach, I don't have my clients' answers. They have their answers, but sometimes it's hard to see those answers. So that connection piece, I think having a connection with someone who can help you find your own answers and give you that space. I think it's also about creating that space too.
Yeah, I love that. I might have derailed the community conversation, but
sorry, I went on a tangent.
But no, I love this because I mean, our listeners are coaches. I think we need to understand how this connects to all of us, because I think a lot of what you said connects to me. Is like I love that connection piece. Even though a lot of what I do is group coaching nowadays, but I still have my handful of one-on-one clients that I really feel connected to, and many of them I've been with them for 3 years. 2+ years at least, and it's just incredible to think about that. It's like how we've gone through a journey, a lot of them out. Let's connect it back to community. So you've spent quite a bit of time, at least the past few years, as far as you know, that built up the community of coaches that we're part of, and we felt connected to that, to the certified high performance coaching community. That's part of it. Then what would you say, like maybe we can start with, first of all, why is it important to create a community, an online community of people to come together, and what is the significance of it in our path as coaches? And then we'll start with that, and we'll talk about like what does it take to sustain that community. So what is it about community that we need to go into, and then we'll talk about what it takes to move that forward, and who to talk to about this. And then Michelle has helped us kind of stay connected even through pandemic with the high performance coaches, and it was so great to see you in person this past year too, and then actually get to hug each other.
I know it was great to reconnect in person with the community, the high performance coach community. As far as community, I think it's super important, whether you're doing group coaching and creating a community in that sense, or creating a community, like joining a community of coaches, or whatever the profession is. Because just like I was saying earlier, the connection with clients and coaching, I think it goes to, as coaches, we need that connection for ourselves to continue to improve and learn from each other, and to not feel alone in the journey. I think that's a really important piece, whether it's you're new as a coach or an experienced coach. And I think this is true for like whatever profession. This can be across the board, but specifically speaking about coaches, because if you're navigating, building your business, or even if you're within a corporation and doing this, there's so much to still learn. And I know within the community, the high performance coach community, there are people from so many different backgrounds that bring so many different experiences into the community. And it's just, I think creating that space to continue those conversations of learning is really important, and to feel like there's a space to reach out when you don't know where to go, or you don't know what to do, or you don't know what that next step is, or how to get there, or you want to practice with somebody. I think creating a community is a really important space. And I think that's that connection piece really is a grounding piece. I'm not sure if that really answered the question, but I mean, for me, it's the connection. The connection is huge. And I know for myself, when I have community, I feel like there's so much more that's possible. It's like having almost like a built-in group of coaches, a built-in coach kind of leading the way with that, meaning, or a community of coaches where you can reach out and say, hey, I need a helping hand here, or I don't know how to do this, or will you practice a session with me, or how do I set up my business this way? I think it's just an incredible resource to have a community. And then there's the emotional piece of it too, that connection piece, which I think, as we've learned, I mean, we think we've always known this, but I think it's just been so highlighted in the past few years of how we all need that. For that emotional support is huge too.
Probably put a little context around this, Faisal. I think I totally forgot to share with our listener. They're listening to us and they're like, well, what community? What community? What's she? So, Michelle, you are basically the point person to coordinate and put boundaries around and maintain the certified high performance coaching community, which is a certification under Brendan Burchard. And there's over 1,200 coaches who are certified, who kind of fall under this umbrella that you're trying to help connect and build community with. And you've been doing this for how many years?
Since 2015.
Okay. What's that, like 8 years?
That was the year I got certified. That's when you started?
That's when I started as the community and program director. And I was certified as a coach the year before that in 2014.
Cool.
As a CHPC.
Okay. So go ahead, share.
I was going to say so I just wanted to make sure that our listeners understood, like you've been managing a lot and you've got a team under you to kind of help the community run. And I think there's two ways that we can take this conversation and that we are taking the conversation. There is the way of, as a coach, how am I in community to grow myself? And then there's going to be a lot of listeners who are like, I'm trying to grow a community that I can manage and lead and help other people grow. So I think the application goes in two different directions. So I just kind of wanted to clarify that because I think both are really important in the life of a coach and the journey of a coach.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Having that support system as a coach, a support system of other coaches, a community of other coaches, and then creating that for your own coaching clients, creating a community, whether it's a community of for your group coaching clients and they're all going through the coaching together as a cohort or evergreen or however it's set up. I know people have various ways of setting up their group coaching, or if it's a way you bring your one-on-one coaching clients together in a space where they can share and connect. And I think one thing that is really powerful for client, in both cases, it's that continuing to have the conversation and those growth conversations that happen outside of a coaching session or a coach training. But it's creating a space and an environment, a safe space and an environment for that continued learning and continued support where, my perspective is, and I think it depends on each person, how you're setting up your community, but having an intention of how you want your community, what's the intention of your community? So for the communities, and I've done group coaching and had a community for my own group coaching as well. So I've seen both sides of community and running community and setting that up. I think one piece that is really important is to be clear on what's the intention and how is it going to be run. Meaning, in both cases, my role is to kind of stand back and hold the space and create that space and have the boundaries set up around it. But I don't always initiate everything in it because it's a space where the community members create those connections and ask those questions. And it's more holding the space and creating boundaries within boundaries and guidelines, which I think are really important. In either situation for community. Yeah. So I think those are really important pieces, but allowing the community to ask questions of each other, share with each other, and really keep that conversation going.
Yeah, I love that. And there were a few other things you said even before this, which I thought were really brilliant, because one of the things, especially with coaches, and like we're talking to coaches as well here, is as you go on this journey, one of the first feelings that appear is that feeling of like you feel alone. Because it's one thing to, like, if we're going to those events, whenever we go to our certification event, we're around everybody, we're excited, we're dancing, we're hugging each other. We come home and we're all excited to start this week. The first week you're excited, and by the second week you're like, oh shoot, I don't know what I'm doing here. Who do I reach out to? Who do I connect with? And I think one of the most powerful things that I've seen, and it kind of goes back to Sherry's point around, like, there are two sides to this, is like, how do we conduct ourselves within a community, and then how do we run a community, because they're both sides of it are there. And I love what you said, Michelle, is that creating that space and setting up guidelines around it is important. So for me, like I've been on both sides of it, and just one thing I've learned in the certified high performance community. First of all, I think you hear from me quite a few times, like, "Hey, Michelle, did you not approve my?" And so I'm posting stuff and I'm engaged, but also in the background, I learned just after the first 2 years of kind of being there, because I was in my own little corner and I was just trying to figure things out and getting frustrated. At some point, I remember I was like, okay, that's not working. Why don't I just start talking to more coaches? And that actually helped me a lot. And part of it, that became sort of the birth of CMC as well, but also even just being engaged within the certified high performance coaching community, where I started reaching out to more coaches, talking to them. And I learned so much just interacting with them. And then later on, as I kind of moved forward, I became a little bit more active. I'm like, okay, anybody needs help, I can help you. It's like reach out, because I knew like how hesitant I was to reach out to people. And that's, I think what makes that community powerful, just as from a perspective of being part of something, is to be helpful, to be there to support each other and not feel like you're alone. I think makes a huge difference. And a lot of the time, especially in the coaching world, I think one of the things that's understated is that feeling of loneliness goes on. And the main thing that I've learned how to deal with it, I'm in conversation with coaches constantly, like probably 3 times, 4 times a week. Probably more if I were to really look at my calendar.
It would be more. It would be more. It's just 3 to 4 times a week just with me and some of
I know.
our colleagues.
But that has helped me. Like I've stayed with that, and I'm all, because there are very few people that understand what we're doing unless they're in that path. When you're around them, you get so excited. You're like, okay, you're trying this thing. I'm doing this thing too, and I'm struggling with it, but I'm trying to figure it out. Just being part of that struggle together makes it so much easier. And every coach that I've talked to, it's been the same thing. It's like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And a lot of it, they think that it's a solution they can't come up with, but a lot of it is that emotional side of like, I feel alone. And that's not a good feeling for human beings. I mean, we figured that out during the pandemic. We figured that out.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely having a community to reach out to and be able to feel connected with. And as you said, like in between times when, there may be a coach training or in-person piece, but keeping that momentum going. I know that when I first became a coach, I reached out to the beta coaching was a big piece. I know that for me, and just making sure I was connecting with members of the community to practice and have those conversations. Otherwise, I felt like I was staring at my computer, not knowing what was next and just floating.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast.